producers of Jurassic Park and the director of Speed bring you face to face with Twister.
Welcome to the Real Buffs podcast. I'm your host, Charlie.
I am Matt, your storm chaser extraordinaire for today.
And I'm the one, Calvin. How's everybody doing?
Calvin, the one, the F5 over there on the Fujia scale.
He's the one that isn't going to listen to us and get sucked up into that wonderful tornado. RIP to the ones we lost along the way.
Oh, man.
So this week, we are looking at the 1996 90s disaster film Twister, directed by Jan de Bont, written by Michael Crichton and Anne-Marie Martin, starring Helen Hunt, Bill Paxton, Carrie Elwes, Jamie Gertz, Lois Smith, Alan Ruck, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Just a stacked cast, actually. And so great to come back and see that, especially anytime I see Philip Seymour Hoffman. I'm excited. So we decided to do Twister, and obviously we're doing this movie because we're talking almost 30 years later. It's about 28 years later. We've got a sequel coming out on July 19th, so excited for the new movie to come out. I'm actually somewhat excited to go see this new movie. I don't know about you guys.
Dude, I am just as excited for this movie as I am Wolverine and Deadpool. I'm going to say it out there. Bro, I don't know what it is. I am such a sucker for these types of films, disaster films. You could just, the movies are meant to shut your brain off. And that's what this movie is. And I am so excited.
Yeah, no, likewise. So I had a discussion about it yesterday, and I'm very curious to see how they're going to follow up with this, because they called this is a standalone sequel, according to them. It's a standalone sequel to the original 1996. But to your point, I'm very curious about this. For Wolverine and Deadpool, by the way, super excited.
Yeah, it says a standalone sequel thing. So I was kind of curious. Obviously, there's a couple members that aren't going to be in the movie to make an appearance, like Philip Seymour Hoffman, Bill Paxton. But I was I almost feel like you got to get somebody from the OG cast to just a nod to them or something in some way. So I'm kind of hoping they pay homage in some way, whether it's you mentioned them on the Weather Channel or whatever they're doing, or they mentioned Dorothy, or maybe get one of the side crews, side cast to just make a quick appearance. I'm hoping for that big time, but it sucks because it comes out the 19th. I'm obviously not going to be able to see it that day because I won't be in the country, but so it's killing me inside. Even such a first world problem.
So Alan Ruck's going to come back. He's going to come back and be out of a job because he was the map guy, and obviously he's obsolete at this point.
He's going to come in I got the maps, guys, and he goes to pull out a map, and Glenn Powell's just gonna be like, dude, I already got it in the Google Maps right now. We're good.
Oh my god.
That might have been the most 1996 thing from this movie, in a bunch of things that are very 1990s from this movie, and we'll talk about
yes
that is true.
All right, cool. Let's get into the chat GPT summary. Twister 1996 is a thrilling disaster film that follows the adventures of Jo Harding and her estranged husband Bill Harding as they chase tornadoes in Oklahoma. The film begins with a flashback to Jo's childhood, where her father is killed by a powerful tornado, sparking a lifelong obsession with studying these deadly storms. Reunion motivation. Bill, now a weatherman, arrives with his fiancée, Melissa, to get Joe to sign divorce papers. However, he gets drawn back into the world of storm chasing when he learns that Joe is close to deploying Dorothy, a device they co-designed to collect valuable data from inside tornadoes. Joe and Bill, along with their team, embark on a series of dangerous chases to place Dorothy in the path of a tornado. Along the way, they face numerous challenges and intense encounters with multiple tornadoes, showcasing the raw power and unpredictability of these storms. The team competes with another group of storm chasers led by Dr. Jonas Miller, who has a similar device but lacks the dedication and expertise of Joe's team. As they chase storms, Joe and Bill confront their unresolved feelings for each other, the trauma from Joe's past. Melissa, witnessing the chaos and the danger of their work, realizes that Bill still has deep feelings for Joe. The film's climax involves a massive F5 tornado, the most powerful category. Joe and Bill successfully deploy Dorothy, gathering the crucial data they need. They take shelter in a barn and narrowly survive the tornado's destruction. With the data collected, Joe and Bill hope to revolutionize tornado warning systems, potentially saving countless lives in the future. The film ends with Joe and Bill rekindling their relationship, united by their shared passion and experiences. Twister combines intense action sequences, groundbreaking special effects, and a compelling story of personal and scientific discovery, making it a memorable entry in the disaster film genre. Yeah, it is a pretty memorable entry in the disaster film genre. I would say it's one of the highlights of like the 1990s disaster films. But before we discuss that, what's your guys' relationship with this movie?
I'll let Calvin go first on this one.
Thanks. So, I saw Twister when this was years ago when I was a little kid, and I enjoyed the movie. I liked it, but never quite followed up on it until years later. This year, actually, I rewatched it, and I don't know why. I don't know why I never went back to it as frequently as I could have, but I went back to it, and I was just remembering like, oh shit, like this is a really good movie. I mean, when you're older now, like it just, everything just radiates differently in terms of just the themes, the personal themes, obviously, and then understanding tornadoes and having a little bit more knowledge of it. So I was just like, wow, like this movie stands. Like this movie aged really well. And it's kind of hard for some movies during that time. Well, the disaster movies, some of them to age like this, but it aged really well. Even the CGI effects, I was really impressed by them.
Yeah. Dude, so I'm like with you. I saw it as a kid, obviously. It came out when I was 6. Honestly, I think I saw it around that time because I lived in North Dakota as a kid and I was terrified of tornadoes, man. We would get tornadoes in the summer all the time. So I watched the Weather Channel obsessively. Like it was to the point where I would watch it for hours on end because I was so afraid a tornado was going to hit my house. And so that compounded with the fact that I watched this movie all the time. And it seemed like tornadoes would target certain people because I'm like a 7-year-old kid and she's talking about how you'd ever seen it jump over this house and miss this house and then hit your house. And I was like, oh my God, tornadoes have a brain. And then my younger sister was so obsessed with this movie too, that she would watch it every single day and she'd reenact the movie with her dolls. So it was a movie that just played legitimately nonstop. And I wanted to be a meteorologist because of this movie. And one of my goals, if I could do anything in life, is still to like be a weatherman in some capacity because of this film. And but you're right, dude. It really held up. I kind of forgot all of like the more serious tones, such as the divorce things that as a kid. So I haven't watched this movie in probably like 10 years, to be honest with you, but it's a movie that like all the scenes stand out in my head still. And so when I'm watching it, I was like, oh, I totally forgot. He brings his new fiance to sign the divorce papers of his old marriage. And then he drags her along with his still wife while he's still engaged. And it was like, wow, this, Bill isn't the greatest of guys to start out with. And it's the things he puts Melissa through. Actually,
weirdly enough, I would think it's so metaphoric also, not only literal Twister, but his life is just a whole Twister, a whole tornado, basically, for you to do really is. Like that.
Well, doesn't Melissa at one point say, she's like, I thought, chasing tornadoes was just a metaphor. She says it at some point. Yeah. So yes, it kind of is. I'm like, oh, okay. You're going to really like hammer this home, beat us over the head with it. So, okay. Yeah. Similar to you guys, I was obsessed with this movie as a kid. I was obsessed with tornadoes as a kid too. And actually I read somewhere, I didn't put this in my notes, but I read somewhere that actually meteorology, people who were interested in the field of meteorology skyrocketed after this movie. So I'm not really surprised at all. It's similar to like Top Gun, where everybody wanted to be an Air Force or a pilot after that. I think a Navy pilot was more for that. But yeah, so that's what I read, and I was super interested in it too, Matt. It's so funny the way you're saying it, because like that's how I was as a kid. After I saw this tornado movie, I became obsessed with it, and in the Northeast, like you get some bad storms, like you do.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as bad as the ones obviously in the South because they got warmer temperatures, humidity, all that stuff. But you still get some pretty bad storms. That like you'll get a tornado every now and again in Massachusetts,
especially like Western Mass. Yeah. And also like people don't really realize with the storms with like the Northeast, you know, having pretty much grown up I moved there when I was 10 and lived there forever. The trees are a lot older and more brittle in the Northeast too. So when it comes to storms, like all the trees get knocked down way easier and things like that. So it seems like there's a lot more damage with mild storms. I mean, look what Sandy did, for example, to like New York and New Jersey and everything. We're not equipped to handle these kinds of storms. We don't have storm shelters or we don't prepare for hurricanes. So anytime there's a storm coming through, like we're not equipped for these kind of natural disasters. We don't get earthquakes even up there.
No, we're equipped for like the snow stuff. That's it.
Yeah, we're equipped for snow, and that's just really about it.
Yeah, that's really about it for us in the Northeast. In New York, I remember when we actually did have a small tornado. It was a very slight tornado, and it was that was scary because even you felt that, and the trees they were falling, like some tree branches they were falling. Thank God it wasn't to the point where it was like really something that was that major, but. To your point, no, that this movie definitely inspired a whole generation of meteorologists. It was insane how many people wanted to. And even I was curious about tornadoes. I found out that obviously 80% of tornadoes happen in the United States, and they happen obviously in Tornado Alley.
Well, yeah. So like the reason for that is because, you know, we have the mountains on one side and mountains. So we have like this whole flat land up the center. And so basically the hot air comes up from the south, the cold air pushes in kind of from the north, and that creates that whole convection and everything like that. So, and then when you look at how like Europe's set up, their mountains are more, you know, not ours was that vertical up and down, and then their mountains run horizontally. And so like their mountains block this from happening. And so there's no real valleys and things like, they get tornadoes once in a while, but the way our land is set up, there's just that perfect in between where everything gets trapped, and it's interesting, but we can go on for hours about meteorology at this point.
No, because once again, that's just the influence of the movie, because the movie really inspired me to be so curious about tornadoes and twisters, and even they had typhoons. They even had the twister on water. I was just like, wow, like it was sick. That movie definitely inspired a whole generation to be curious about either meteorology or looking up tornadoes in general. Amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man.
It inspired our generation, yet not one of us in here is a meteorologist.
Nope.
Just goes to show you, you know, your dreams when you're a kid, they just get dashed, you know, like that. That's all.
Listen, kids, gather around the table. Let me tell you how once upon a time the light was in our eyes. We had so much hope. We were going to do so much. We were going to change the world. And then here you are, you're podcasting in your spare bedroom on a Saturday morning.
That's the millennial journey right there.
That is the millennial journey. That's the dream. Hey, we're living out the dream.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we got to ask then the question, because this is such a staple of the 90s, and especially like the disaster films of the 90s, which was it was really big during the 90s, because obviously we're in peacetime. There's the Cold War's ended, and like we had to make up.
We had to fight
in
something.
We had to make up enemies. So
exactly.
So there we go. So is this the best 1990s disaster film? And we've got a solid list of like good disaster films from the 1990s. So obviously Twister. Then we got Armageddon, which is obviously going to be up there. And I think when you look at 90s or just disaster films in general, you think of, it's got to be like something natural, you know, but there's a couple of on here that I think are open for debate. Because I think Independence Day, despite what it being an alien invasion, is more of a disaster film in the way it's portrayed than like a sci-fi film. Well, first off, it just has that feel towards it. I don't know what it is. Like, it's all about the spectacle of the destruction.
Well, they blow up cities left and right, you know? Yeah, they're destroying cities, man.
Yeah, and it's more focused on the people surviving and trying to get away from it than than anything to do with like the science fiction or what this means for humanity questions. Like I always, like I always said before, I feel like sci-fi kind of like is a holding up a mirror to society. This is just more of like, hey, popcorn survival flick, you know, sort of thing. And that feels more like a disaster film. So, but what do you guys think? What do you think's the best 90s disaster film? Do you think it's Twister? Or do you think it's one of the other ones I've listed here?
I don't know, man. This is hard because Armageddon is a classic. I mean, you get that absolute heater from, you know, Steven Tyler. You got Liv Tyler in it. That cast is stacked, like with
Bruce
Ben
Willis.
Affleck, Bruce Willis. Like the cast is pretty stacked. And the whole like, why are we training drillers to be astronauts? Why don't we train astronauts to be drillers? And he was like, shut the fuck up, Ben. Like that whole thing came from that. Honestly, man, like I even love Dante's Peak. Like that's a good classic movie. Volcano is slept on with Tommy Lee Jones and the Volcano of Los Angeles. Deep Impact's another one that kind of like I enjoy because it's an asteroid film in like a different light where everyone's preparing for this asteroid. Like, what do you do? And then it fails. It's, you know, this is a tough one. I don't know what to pick because I love these movies for various things. I guess if I had a gun to my head, I would probably say Armageddon was probably the most influential besides Independence Day, if you do want to classify that as a disaster movie. Titanic, I don't, because Titanic's a real story. So I don't really.
Yeah, that was the other one I was thinking about.
Movie,
it's like a historical disaster, I guess.
Yeah, it's a historical disaster, but these ones are all like obviously fictional for now, right?
Yeah,
great climate wars come or whatever, but yeah, no, I didn't consider Titanic just because of the fact that I felt it was more of obviously a true documentary between a peasant who sneaks upon the Titanic and falls in love with a rich lady, clearly. But we forget Bill Paxton's actually in Titanic as well.
Oh, yeah. He was Brock Lovett.
Yeah, he was trying to get that necklace and she just throws it in the ocean. I would have thrown that old ass lady in the ocean personally, but that's neither here nor there. That's a discussion for the Titanic film that when we do that one.
Oh, man. Let's see. For me, I mean, shoot, honestly, I would still go Titanic, to be honest with you, because the way James Cameron, the way he did it, how dedicated he was once again to that vision, it was so real. Like you actually felt like you were on that ship. You were on the Titanic, and then the way he put the sounds together, and it was a great intersection between disaster, historical realism, and then also you're throwing in obviously the romantic aspect of it. So it was a great mix. But in terms of and I'm looking at the disaster aspect of it, man, I mean, Twister's up there though. Twister's so hard. And now Armageddon, even though people panned it, people are just like turned off by it, but not for nothing. For a disaster film, for what it is, it's just pretty fucking good.
All right. You know what? I'll give you Twister for the sole fact that was the first time like 7-year-old me saw boobs in a film.
You mean Titanic, not Twister?
Titanic, yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, trust me, there's no boobs in Twister. I've tried.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you get some cow udders maybe, but.
Yeah, no, I tried too. I was like kind of looking to see, is Helen Hunt going to give a little nipple flash? I wonder. But
it's a PG-13 movie. This is
I do have something to bring up in regards to Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton, though, once we kind of talked to this, because my wife, while we were watching this, she was like, I used to think Bill Paxton in this movie was so attractive, but he's like 90s attractive. And she was like, do you find is Helen Hunt 90s hot in this movie? And I was like, yeah, I think she kind of is.
Oh, it's there. This movie is like, it's perfect in that the way it's cast, because let's look at the cast right now for the new Twisters. You got Glenn fucking Powell, who's like,
he's on a heater of his own right now.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
But he's also like way too good looking to be a storm chaser, so it's not really that believable.
Are you saying storm chasers are ugly? That's not nice. All the storm chasers are going to be emailing us soon, being like, "What the fuck, man? My mom got me handsome."
Yeah, like
no, I'm not saying that they're ugly. I'm just saying that they all don't look like Glenn Powell. Like let's just dial it back a little bit. And I think this is what I like about this one is that in the 90s, you definitely had more of a concerted effort to have or cast people that aren't just like the best looking people, make it so that it's a little bit more believable. They don't need to be the best looking people. They need to like be believable in their role. And that's what I appreciate about this film. You know, I could see Helen Hunt being a storm chaser. I could see Bill Paxton. I could definitely see Philip Seymour Hoffman being one. I could see Alan Ruck being a maps guy and being out of a job in
Philip Seymour
2024.
Hoffman.
Yeah, right.
Definitely could see that.
But to go back onto our 1990s disaster film, I think it's fair to consider Titanic a disaster film. It really is. It's a natural disaster. It may be historical, but we're still like the second half of the movie is the ship sinking. Like it's all about that.
True.
So it's about people surviving. We're there for the spectacle of it, and it's great. Like it just happens to be a non-fictional one. So like that's all. And I think that classifies. So
I'll take of course.
And with Armageddon, like I think Armageddon is probably the most popular of the 90s. Actually, no, I'd say Independence Day is the most popular of the 90s.
Oh yeah, Independence Day is probably because people still talk about Independence Day. They share videos every year of Independence Day. Like usually you're not getting videos of Bruce Willis blowing himself up, leaving himself behind. You're getting the great Bill Pullman up there and doing his Independence Day speech.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's a good movie, and it's actually came out the same year. So this is a big year for disaster movies in 1996. Armageddon's too long. Like it needs to be cut back.
It really is.
It really was. It really was.
It's a Michael Bay film. I mean, of course, what'd you expect?
Yeah, it's unnecessarily long and whatever. But
speaking of disasters, real quick, I would just like to point out that the Universal Studios ride Twister that I went on was phenomenal. Do you know what it was replaced with? The real disaster that we're not talking about. We buried the lead. It was replaced with the Jimmy Fallon ride.
Oh my God, that's
wow,
dude.
Yes, and I've been on that ride as well. But the greatest disaster of our generation is the Twister ride was taken out of Universal and replaced with Jimmy Fallon. So,
oh my God,
oh man, oh my God, that's so. Let's move on.
Just brought the whole mood down.
Before I shit on Jimmy Fallon again some more, I feel like every time we've gotten together, I think I did that on the sports movie podcast too.
Yeah, well, we did. Yes.
I don't know why it's just so easy. It's just so easy to shit on him for some reason. It's so easy to do it.
Well, you know,
Jesus Christ.
I'll leave it at that. I think that this deserves consideration. Obviously, Twister, but I'll give it to Independence Day for being the best 90s disaster film. It's fair. It's iconic. It's iconic. It's so cheesy. It's like it's the perfect encapsulation of like the 1990s disaster films. But I think even more so, the next question, is this the most 1990s movie of all time? Because it's got consideration for that. And that just means
a harder one. What do you mean?
Wow.
It's even harder. It is, but like think about it. This is such a 1990s film. There's a solid list of these ones now too. Like and some of we've got some crossover because I would definitely put Independence Day up there. Yeah. Also another Jan de Bont one, Speed. I would definitely say is one of the most 1990s films.
That is
Scream, 100%. Because Scream, you've got like. Has got that whole meta commentary that really starts to come about in the 90s. I think with that and Last Action Hero, even Last Action Hero is like one of those underrated 90s films that's very meta. Titanic, obviously, we talked about. Men in Black, like, come on. That feels like such a 1990s film.
Oh my God. Space
Jam, up there. But I think in my opinion, the most 1990s film of all time is Clueless. It's got to be.
I mean, there's a lot of things that are very relic of the 90s, such as pagers and stuff in there. Like if you think about it from like a social, societal, pop culture standpoint, Clueless probably has the most like, because it's not futuristic. It's set in that time period. You have the ageless Paul Rudd. You've got just the technology of the 90s that showcase like how advanced they felt for the time, right? Remember the first time we got cell phones? That's a really good point, man, actually.
No, that's a really good point for me. Wow, that's so hard. I feel like it's a clash between Scream and Clueless, to be quite honest with you. Because Scream, like it's set in a high school in 1996. The fashion is there. I mean, the style of music, the
house phones
there. Yeah, and then the hairstyles, everything. It was just, man, that's so hard. Clueless is another one too, because that literally, like you said, that's an encapsulation of the 90s, just from the pagers to like how people spoke, man.
As if.
Yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. That.
And it's and both of those capture like 1990s high school teens. So there's a case to be made with that. I think when you think about a movie like Twister, it's the combination of the technology along with the time like of when a movie like this would be popular. Like I said before, during the 90s was peacetime in the US. This is pre 9/11, so this is after the Cold War. So we don't have any like enemies or anything like that. So we're making films based on natural disasters, which are our enemies at that point. So that's it. Like, and the whole concept of this. Then obviously, like you could even go back further to say Jurassic Park had a big influence on this with Michael Crichton and everything. I mean, so like you can even go to say that, like, and what's the 1990s film with Jurassic Park, but I would say Jurassic Park is very timeless too. Like it doesn't, it's a film that takes place in the 90s, but like it doesn't. There's a couple things about it that feel 90s. It's really just like the computer stuff that they're doing. But if you were to tell me that this took place in like early 2000s, pre 9/11, I would have been like, yeah, that feels very accurate actually. So it doesn't feel as 90s as some of the other ones. And similarly with, as much as I'd love to say Dazed and Confused, like it's a movie about the 70s, so it doesn't feel as 90s. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I will say this in regards to that, during the 90s, there was like the revival of 70s interest though.
Yeah.
Well, just like today, I mean, it's just like today we're going back to making a lot of movies like in the 90s and stuff, like in the 80s, with like TV, I mean, Stranger Things and stuff like that. So it's kind of like it's come full circle,
Yeah, no, it's really come full circle. And I remember during that time, I mean, that 70s show came out in the 90s. So there was this whole interest. And then like, obviously, even other things within the culture at that time, they were focused a lot on revival of like certain 70s things. Like when you had like the alternative movement, like these, like they had like their basis on punk rock, which was made in the 70s. So it's just like a reworking and just a revamping of it. And, there was a lot of interest in it. So I would give Dazed, I would give it definitely a 90s stamp just because it captured just what the society was kind of feeling at the time in regards to the 70s nostalgia.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't disagree with that. Like that's a good point. I didn't think about it like that. And you start to think about like even Pulp Fiction too. Like that's where like a lot of 70s revival, because obviously Tarantino made it really cool and everything like that. So, and there was this sort of like, interest in different sort of music from then. So yeah, I can't disagree with that. That's a good point, actually. I didn't think about it of like the whole 70s revival that happened in the 90s. But yeah, I still give it to Clueless, but I feel like Twister is a strong case for being the most 1990s film of all time.
I mean, that it does make a case, especially when you're looking at things like maps and the vehicle, the Dodge. Like, okay, did you know like so they obviously showcased the Dodge Ram right in this movie, and I looked it up, and apparently after this movie came out, the increase per like unit sold in a year went up by like 70,000 units or something like that. It was like, 30,000. It went from 440,000 units sold in a year to 470,000 units sold in a year after, just because everybody wanted their Dodge Ram, because clearly it's the most durable thing in the world. Takes how much of a beating from tornadoes before it finally gets destroyed?
Yeah. I have to give it to that Dodge Ram, man.
Well, this was also, remember back in the 90s, they had the Chevy commercials too with what's his name? Bob Seger song, Like a Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Like a rock.
Oh,
my God.
like a rock.
Oh, my God. Oh, my gosh. If there's not a commercial that can describe like America any better.
I know.
Oh, my God.
And
Great commercial though.
I mean, dude, we're talking about it 30 years later, and it's still one of the ones I remember.
Instantly knew the jingle.
Yeah.
Yeah, instantly. Once I heard it, I was just like, "Oh my god!"
Chevy,
Because
like a rock.
Rock. I mean, listen, it was great. It was great. Honestly, I can't. It's one of those things where you just like you're just like, but at the same time, it's like, you know what? It's so memorable. The reason why I'm doing that is because, oh my gosh, you remember it, like it sticks to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Feels like a rock.
So, all right, are you guys, Calvin? You're saying this the most '90s film on here, Scream. What about you, Matt?
I'm sticking Clueless, man, just from like a real standpoint there, getting realistic again. I'm gonna go Clueless.
Yeah, it's very '90s. I mean, you know, the whole '90s trend about well, no, that actually came about in the '80s. Never mind. We talked about it on the Jaws 3 one with with wanting to bang
oh yeah
related to, well, I guess no, just well, they technically weren't related. It was the stepbrother thing, which actually it was kind of a '90s trope because Cruel Intentions too also did something similar.
Cruel Intentions is such a '90s movie.
Actually, that movie. One I left off the list. Is actually, that might be a borderline one. Is Cruel Intentions a?
It was
99.
99. Yeah, it was made in '99, but you could tell like it's a late '90s film. So especially for '99, you could tell like there was this shift, obviously going towards the new millennium, but it's still very '90s. Especially the soundtrack. When you hear that soundtrack from that movie, Cruel Intentions, it's just like, yeah, this is very much late '90s alternative rock. It's so good.
Bittersweet Symphony.
Oh yes, and then Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yes.
Yeah, Ryan Phillippe.
Oh man, yes.
Man,
it was a beautiful cast, man.
Yeah. Talk about beautiful casts. Absolutely. So I gotta ask, and we'll talk about this more on What Age the Worst, I guess, too. But did this movie age well? Because I know you guys have already had some opinions on this, but I've got some opinions on it. So do you guys think this movie aged well?
I'm gonna go yes. I think it did because, you know, like watching it, there's a lot of practical effects they did in this movie. Obviously the tornadoes were not practical, but there's a lot of practical effects. Like the CGI isn't terrible for the tornadoes. Like there's some bits and pieces, like especially with the water spout twisters and the sound effects there, and like the CGI looked a little rough there, but overall, like for the practicality of the things that they did, yeah, I would say that this aged pretty decently, man.
Matt, what are you saying? They made those storms, all right? They did.
You're right.
They have that Jewish machine that makes
Jewish
storms.
Space lasers, right? Right after they turn the frogs gay.
Oh my god.
I'm sure Alex Jones has a conspiracy theory on like Twister being a documentary. No, it does. There is a lot of practical effects in this, surprisingly enough, though. Like they're actually like throwing stuff at them too, which is pretty cool. Like because nowadays it would be CGI, and it feels so much less earned when it's not something that's real in front of you. Like your actors have now. Granted, like it's great for actor safety and everything, and I'm on board with that. It's certainly easier to get insured, I'm sure. So like there's a lot of financial things that make it easier when it is CGI, but it does feel like it's just less earned. That's all. Like it just, there's nothing tangible there. So, and there is, that's what's pretty cool about it. Like they use CGI, but they also do a lot of practical stuff too, and it looks great.
Agreed.
So,
hard agree.
Agreed. No, I definitely agree. For the most part, it aged well. For the most part, aged well. Obviously, the effects, they obviously use CGI, and even the CGI for that time, it was pretty good. When you look at it right now, it's still pretty cool. But they also had a lot of practical effects, like was mentioned before. So it definitely was a movie that aged very well. And I think in terms of, I would say in terms of just overall the theme of the movie, I think it's not only just about the obviously the physical tornadoes, but it's also about in terms of the drama, in terms of unpacking certain traumas, because nowadays actually this is more of a relevant theme now than it was back then in terms of unpacking traumas from people.
Yeah.
Now, but definitely I think as it's gone on, it's aged very well. I agree with that.
Oh, Joe has a death wish in this movie. Like,
Oh
seriously.
my God, we'll dive into that. Yes.
Yeah,
I got some things to say.
She's got a death wish. Also, like when we're talking about themes, can we just talk about this a second? This is a pretty horny movie too, somewhat. Like it's kind of surprisingly, this is just like, you know, hey, storm chasing and fucking basically could have been.
Dude, the looks that Joe is just giving Bill Paxton at every turn, you're kind of like, all right. And then Philip Seymour Hoffman is actively trying to lick Melissa's face and ear and eat her face this entire movie because he's probably on bath salts or something. But you know, you're right, man. You are absolutely, and like the fact that these tornadoes are clearly making everybody horny as shit too. Like,
yeah,
well, I mean,
like
go ahead, Calvin.
They get a thrill for it, dude, and you could tell like they got that thrill for it. Not for nothing. Like I mean, Helen Hunt, honestly, in terms of her attire, she was wearing. Honestly, she was fucking hot. Like, yeah, I loved it. Don't get me wrong. Melissa was also like she was good too. Like she was hot too.
She was 90s hot. Yeah,
she was 90s hot, and she caught me more at first than Helen Hunt's character, but
I'd agree with that.
But then as I was looking at Joe and I was looking at her, I was just like, wow, like if you just
like,
honestly
kind of bad right now.
No, because when she first went on the screen, right? When I first saw her, I was just like, wow, like I really like what you're wearing there. Like it's really like it's very
working for him.
It was working. No, it was working for me. It was working for me. And I was just like, wow, like, you know, you're handling your shit, like you look real good with it. And the thing is, when you saw Melissa, when you saw her, she was also hot too. Like she was 90s hot. She had the hair all like done up real well. Everything. But then as it went along, the only thing I'd have to say is that besides the, you know, the trauma unpacking, besides that, like you're working it. You're working it.
Yeah, the only thing I think, like, there's a couple of things that I think didn't age well. Like, first off, like, let's be real. Why weren't more people hit by debris? Like, that's how people die during tornadoes. You get hit by debris. Like, it's not you getting sucked up into it. It's more you getting hit by shit. So that was like one of my main criticisms. I guess, you know, they wanted to protect their actors or whatever. You know, they didn't want to hit them with stuff. But there's that, and then you know, I think something that makes this movie age a little poorly is maybe just climate change awareness, and how because back in the 90s, like let's be real, like that's not something it was something that was known, but it wasn't really at the forefront.
It was a starting point in the 90s. Like that's why it's so hard. A lot of things like that we talk about today, they really started in the 90s and they kind of developed on forward.
Yeah. It's just, and it's like, it's hard to look at Twisters now and not thinking like, fuck, and like, what are we doing to make this happen? Like, even though that's still like, you know, they're naturally occurring and they've happened before. Humans have had an effect on climate change, but like, what are we doing to make this worse?
Well, fun fact is that Tornado Alley is actually shifting to the right. They've noticed there's a lot more tornadoes happening far, like, you know, in Tennessee, for example, and places like that. You're starting to see Tornado Alley shift a little bit, which kind of alarming, you know. And then on top of the other things, and then, you know, going back to, you know, did this age well? Obviously not everything aged well. We forgot to talk about the fact that they were using maps in this movie. Clearly that's not something we're doing today. You're just gonna be like, although you can still use a navigator, like he would still have a job. Maybe he's putting in the navigation something.
Totally.
For sure.
But he's not pulling maps out with a pen or anything like that.
No, and it wouldn't be like, it wouldn't be an Apple Maps thing. It would definitely be a lot more precise and like real time, because you don't have time to fuck around with that.
they're probably in some like really remote areas in some cases. Like if they don't have cell service, they can still pull out the old tried and true maps. I haven't seen an actual map in forever. Like I don't remember the actual time I've seen a physical map, but if they I'm sure they still sell them.
You know what?
they still sell them.
You know what who would be like now though too is like the map guy would just be some like badass like retired special forces guy who knows his shit about maps, like because those guys are all about navigation and maps. Like
true. You have to be. No, I totally agree with that. I love maps though. Actually, this movie because I've always loved maps. That movie is like looking at that in terms of driving with maps and stuff like that. I definitely caught me because I've always had a thing for maps since my dad, like he drives all around like the Eastern Seaboard. So always loved it. And just that hasn't really aged well. Although I wish that there could be a revival of that. Like, oh, okay, my phone's not working. All right. I have a trusty old map to just help me out here.
Okay. You know, I'm glad you say that because there's times I'm sitting down even today and I open up Google Maps and I'm just like looking at random cities and I like looking at random places. Or if I know I'm going someplace, I pull it up on Google Maps and I'm just like looking at like where from my hotel to where's this. And I still do like maps. Like obviously it's in our hands, but I'm with you, man. It's something about like looking at maps and all this kind of other stuff. I still have a fondness for it.
Yeah, no, I still have a fondness to this day for it. But however, the thing that obviously that really helps out with GPS, obviously, is like you can literally see where you are right there at this moment. With the map, I mean, unless you really know the location, you have the name of the location.
There's no you are here.
Yeah. There's no you are here. There's no you are here. You're gonna have to try and say like, all right, you know what? I think I'm here. I'm by this place. I don't know quite how far, but I'm here. So,
dude, I don't know how we did it. Like, I would have to give like sometimes my friends. This is even like before iPhone. So like,
I would be lost and dead.
2006. I would have to give them like exact directions. I'm like, all right, you're gonna take this exit at the second set of lights. You're gonna take a right, and on this street, it's the house number the blank. You know, I had to fucking say that and like not even type that in too, because obviously, well, I could text, but it wasn't as great back then either. Yeah. So
I use landmarks still. Like landmarks are something still today that when I'm driving and, you know, obviously as you start to learn where to go, like I use landmarks. So that's kind of a big thing that I do today. But yeah, I would have never survived in the 90s if I had to. Obviously, we probably would have, saying it's easy. But the fact that we've kind of come up with iPhones and technology today, it's like, wow.
Yeah, man. Well, dude,
so smart.
I kind of can't believe I'm like, wow, I knew where everything was back in the day. Like, I used to be like a driving machine. Nowadays, like I can, nowadays, even living in LA now, I know where to go. I just sort of use my maps now to like see what the fastest route is.
I was going to say, I use it a lot for traffic purposes for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do now too.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like that's why, again, like for my dad, like for him, because I remember he used to have maps in the glove compartment all the time, and it was just like, what the heck? Like I'm looking throughout all the maps. I'm just like, you have really used the map to figure out where you are, and that's why even now, when it comes to directions, it's just like he doesn't even need a map to know. Okay, I need to get to this part, that part, because GPS. He doesn't need GPS because he's used the map before. And since using a map is just like, okay, things are much easier for him now. And he's familiar with places all around. So it's like, all right, he's not going to get lost. He knows his way. It's so insane. I have so much respect for the previous generations who
all the parents out there who did road trips with annoying ass kids in the background. Today, our glove boxes are full of napkins, straws, and other miscellaneous items when they were filled with maps, and they just somehow knew how to do it back then. So shout out to them while I'm trying to get the street light of my Game Boy.
Shout out to Clark. Shout out to Clark W. Griswold.
Yes.
Really a true hero of the map generation. All right. Before we have an entire podcast just on maps, I gotta ask this question too. Did Joe's dad deserve it? Like at the beginning? Because first off, he forgot Toby. All right, like what the fuck was going on with that?
Dude,
you gotta grab the family dog. That was like sin number one for me. I'm like,
I have a whole ass essay on this one because the mom could have grabbed the dog. The dog is tiny. It's not like you're carrying this 50 to 100-pound behemoth. This dog is an ankle biter. Like, pick that dog up. Number two, okay, like he puts that little measly lock on there while Joe and her mom are standing against the wall off to the side. Now, first of all, dude, he never needed to hold the door down. If he just if he had stood with mom and Joe, the tornado's going to pass over you. It's not going to suck you out because you're far enough away against the wall. Like, there's no reason that he needed, because you even see Toby come up a little bit out of the way. Like, Toby's not backing it. He's in the middle of the room. There was no reason to be holding that door. And also, like, dude, you're really going to hold a door against a tornado? Be so serious right now.
Let's have some common sense, like, which he lacked. So he kind of deserved it. First of all, that dog scene, that hurts me even still while watching it. That was the first
thought I had, dude. Yes.
That hurts me still. I still get so anxious watching that. And I'm just like, for me to get anxious for something like this, that means it really impacts me, because I'm just like, oh my God, I have a dog. And then it's just looking at them, I'm just like, oh, I can never do that. If that dog went up there, and I'm always still thinking maybe that dog is going to go up there, it would hurt me. That's one. Two, you could have just gone on with your daughter and wife, and you could have just stayed over there. You didn't have to close the door. You didn't have to attempt to just try and close the door.
Listen here, Hodor, you didn't need to do it.
Yeah, you didn't need to do it. It's like you're trying to match your strength with the tornado. Come on now. We all know who's going to win. I'm sure he's country strong, but you're not that strong.
And dude, it's the 90s. Let's be honest. The mom probably doesn't have a job either. He's the breadwinner. They have a farm. So you just like dead ass left your family to be poor probably, because then what are they going to do?
Well, back then it was the 60s.
Oh,
that's right. It was the 60s. So that for sure that the mom wasn't working.
Yeah, no, absolutely for sure the mom was not working. So there's that. And then once again, the mother could have gotten the dog. She could have gotten the dog.
They took the wrong parent. The wrong mom died. The wrong parent died that day, Dewey.
Oh man.
I guess we don't get, Joe's obsession with tornadoes. If
you also never
happen.
See or hear about her mom ever again either, by the way, but
yeah, right.
Deservedly so.
Ever.
You know what I noticed about this scene though, now watching it this time, because obviously I hadn't watched it in a while before that, is the scene is very reminiscent to the opening scene in Jurassic Park. Like, it feels very similar, especially the ending of it, where it's like the dissolve into the future and like the sound going down and everything.
See what kills them either, because you don't outright see the tornado, just like you don't outright see the velociraptors. It's just like, hey, we're gonna set up and it's obviously Michael Crichton, so like that totally makes sense and totally tracks. So yeah, I thought I couldn't help but think of Jurassic Park watching it this time around. I think that's a good call.
Good call right there.
I think this movie owes a lot to Jurassic Park, actually, when I think back on it now. So, also wanted to call out Calvin. You should know this. Do you know who the actor who played Joe's dad was?
He looked familiar.
His name's Richard Lineback, and I'm bringing this up because of the sports movie draft. He is Lance Harbor from Varsity Blues' dad in that.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yes, he is. Oh my God. I knew he looked familiar.
Yeah.
I was looking at his face. I remember because Varsity Blues is one of my sports movies. So I'm looking at his face. I'm like, wait a minute. Dude, you look really, really familiar. I mean, I'm not, because the thing is, throughout that whole scene, you're just focused on the overall just scene of Twister, just the first scene with the Twister coming in. You're just focused on that. So the faces, you're not really just like putting to your mind like that. But then I'm looking at him like, there's something familiar about you. Yeah. Thank you very much for that.
I felt that same way. Like I sometimes get him confused kind of with what's his name from the Terminator 2, and he's been in a ton of other movies because they kind of like alike, but I knew it obviously wasn't him. So I was like, where have I seen him before? So it makes sense.
You're talking about John Connor's father, right?
Yeah, like Or no, the T-1000.
He kind of has like that. You mean
Robert Patrick?
Yeah. Robert Patrick. They kind of like look similar in a way. Obviously they're not the same person, but to me, I sometimes get them confused, but then you're right. I had that air of familiarity about them. Dude, That's a good call. I didn't realize he was in Varsity Blues.
Nice call.
Yeah,
no.
it was one of those things where I saw it and I'm like, oh, that's him. That's him. That's our guy.
And you had to tell me that because I love Varsity Blues.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad we decided that Joe's dad deserved it. Maybe the mom deserved it. You guys are
Easiest question of all time. Both parents are gone.
I just gotta ask this too. Does Philip Seymour Hoffman just make any movie better? Because he is so fucking, I love him so much in just about anything. Like, you talk about some of the polls he's in where he's like, he's not really always the main guy, but like Boogie Nights, he's fantastic as Scotty in that. I love him in that. The Big Lebowski, he is hilarious in The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
I love him in that. Especially when he does his little like laugh thing where he's like, I love him so much.
He chews the scenery in this movie, and he honestly steals just about every scene he's in. Like I said,
he does.
He's out. He's just like coked up madman. Like, I love his character. He's my favorite character in this movie, just for like the things he's saying. Like, obviously they're getting hailed on, and Melissa's over here like crying, having a shitty time, and he's just like, yeah, like that's the ultimate encapsulation of like what a storm chaser should be to me. And just every movie he is in, he absolutely steals the film, whether he's the bad guy in Mission Impossible. He's playing like that goofy, lovable character in Twister. Dude, it's sincerely sad that we don't have him to be in movies anymore, because he's one of the best actors of all time.
Oh, 10
totally
years too.
Yeah.
10 years, man. He's been gone.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Like, he was so there. Whenever his scenes came on, you were so attracted to it because he played that character so well. He was that goofy, lovable character who was trying to literally eat up Melissa's face. And like he's that one friend, right? He's that one friend who, okay, like he's doing that, he's trying to eat her face up, but at the same time you're just like, oh, it's just him.
He's like, you're comfortable leaving her with him because he's just like goofy and wouldn't actually do anything. And in my head, there is an alternate universe that after this movie ends, him and Melissa somehow get married.
Because I was gonna say, is Melissa banging Dusty to get back
in my head? Like, I even said this while watching this film. There is an alternate reality that if we were to see what these guys are doing after the movie, he gets Bill's permission, and he somehow, like, she has this weird attraction in like this twisted, weird Stockholm syndrome way where they end up banging and having babies.
I don't know. She seems too classy for that.
Hey, but you never know. Wait. You never know.
You never know. You can't eliminate. Very true.
I'm saying, man.
Know.
I mean, he's seducing her with lines like the suck zone. It's not.
He gets up. I told you the suck zone.
Oh my god.
He hit her with the suck zone, and it's over.
Yeah. No, it was over. But then you know what? You never know. You never know. Like, sometimes they may look like so disparate, but you never know. They may have this moment of just convergence. They just come together, and he has a moment, and it's just like, oh, I've never seen you like this. I really, really like it. You never know. That happens.
Yeah, he could just be the the get back at your ex bang too. You never know. So,
she
had to repress all of her PTSD from this tornado chasing, so she gets really drunk one night and hooks up with him, and then they realize they fall in love. There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Oh my god. Following up on that too, with thinking about the character of Melissa, do you think we could have had a different way to have all this like weather/tornado exposition without the character of Melissa? Because obviously she's there to be like a conduit for the audience and to get some of this exposition out of the way, because she's the ignorant one and they got to explain some stuff to her, like, the Fujita scale. They explain that whole thing, some of the other scientific technical terms. So I think it's a good way. And I think like it's perfect the way it's done, because she is in the movie for the amount of time that she needs to be in the movie for, and then they exit her stage right. And I think that's the great way to do it. You always sometimes need those characters in there that are like a conduit for the audience. I think the big one that I always think about is like Inception, where it's Ellen Page's character, or Elliot Page's character, I guess Ellen at the time. But But yeah, so where we're like, she's a conduit to the audience at that point, and like, you're introduced to this world and there's a lot of exposition. So I don't know. Do you guys think there was a better way they could have done it though? Because I do like the way they did it with Melissa. So
No, I loved it. I loved it because honestly, speaking about it, she's part of that whole the whole metaphorical twister of his life. You can't take her out because think about it. If let's say, for example, it would be, let's say, all right, let's say Bill didn't have Melissa with him and he was just with Joe and they're going through the divorce and everything. And it's just like, all right, like they're having a contentious time, but then she adds tension to it. She adds tension to it as well. So it's almost like the way tornadoes start. You have the winds coming in between, and then it just forms this one colossal thing. And you could tell he's being swayed back and forth between obviously his affection for his fiance, but also his still affections, his feelings, his strong feelings for his wife.
yeah.
I mean, no, I overall no, because she kind of drives the plot. She's there for them to explain things to the audience. And I think the only other real way they could have done that, I guess, is like with Carrie Elwes' character, right? Is he's talking to the news anchors and whatnot, kind of explaining how things work. But I feel like if you had too much of them talking to the news about how this stuff works, then it kind of it doesn't work the same as Melissa because she's there for the conflict, right? First of all, you bring your fiance to go sign the papers with your ex-wife. That starts the whole thing. And then she's kind of there to give you like, oh no, she doesn't know what's going on. He still has to worry about her. He's conflicted. It gives character confliction. It drives conflict. And then obviously it lets Philip Seymour Hoffman give information to the audience. And I think, she's perfect for what she does. She isn't in it too much. She isn't in it too late. She's just perfect.
And also, let's remember what her job is too. When we talked about the whole like sex thing,
therapist.
She's
sex therapist,
a reproductive therapist. So
again, that's why I'm telling you, she bangs Philip Seymour Hoffman's character.
Well,
I'm telling you, man.
I love that
Kama Sutra shit.
I love that line she has. She's like, she didn't marry you for your penis. She didn't only marry you for your penis.
Yes, in the back of the car while they're chasing him.
Wow.
The only way I could ever think of, like, I'm glad you brought up the news one, because the only way I could ever think of them doing maybe something along those lines is if basically they worked in, because remember, Bill's a weatherman in real life. Maybe they work in some sort of angle where they're doing some sort of guerrilla filming and he's still there to like accomplish this. And Melissa's not in the scene, and they do some sort of like guerrilla filming where he's explaining it more to his audience, or that's the only other way I could think of it.
Actually, that would work. I mean, obviously we don't know how Twisters is going to do it, but that would work in modern day film, because if you guys pay, I follow like the hurricanes and things like that. And you have a lot of modern, like Mike's weather page is an example, right? He's not a sanctioned meteorologist. He's just like, there's a lot of people that love meteorology. They understand it, and they go on like TikTok, or some of these people, they go to these storm centers and they hunker down and they actively like have live streams going of the storms as they hit. That is actually a good way of how they could possibly do it in like a modern day, because that's kind of like where meteorology and storm chasing is at today. There's so many streaming platforms that people do this stuff from, and personal platforms that they aren't tied to like a weather center. That could actually work today, as they're explaining like a thing where they're explaining to the audience, okay, this is what's happening right now. We're in the middle of this storm. This is how this is forming. This is what you look for in this cloud, X, Y, and Z. If we were to do it in modern day, that is 1000% guerrilla style right there. That's a really good point I didn't even think of until now.
Yeah, I just thought of it too when we were spitballing. I'm like, oh, maybe this would be a good idea, because I'm trying to think. I'm like, we got to get the exposition out there, but we got to do it. But I think Melissa's there to bring some to create some tension, comic relief, and enhance the themes a little bit too, and obviously exposition. So I think like the character works in multiple ways. If it's just one dimensional, then it's like a little bit okay, like that's we could have done it maybe another way. But
but she was given in several facets, which was amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's good filmmaking, that's good writing too. So all right, some more of the fun questions here. What I like that scene where the first tornado comes, they're like jamming out, and like you have the couple of them singing the Oklahoma song. And I'm just curious, what band are we jamming out to, or what song are we jamming out to if you're driving into a tornado?
I'll tell you straight up, I got mine because this is pure chaos. I listen to chaotic music. I listen to metalcore, emo shit, right? So I'm listening to a band called Knocked Loose because they are absolutely just, I've been in many of their mosh pits, and they are by far the most intense mosh pits I will ever be in. So mentally, when I'm driving into a situation like this, it oddly calms me too. And it just fits the bill. For me, it's Knocked Loose. If anybody out there has listened to them, they might know. But yeah, it's absolute chaotic in the perfect controlled way. That is easily my choice right away.
Listen, I have a whole album. Now there are a couple. Listen, there are a couple bands which I could listen to. I can listen to The Offspring. I can't listen to them. I can listen to Offspring would be good, especially their first album, Smash. I could definitely listen to that. But I think there are two bands, but I think one is standing on this for me. So I was gonna say Alice in Chains.
Ooh.
I was gonna say Dirt. That album, Dirt. Yeah, very very intense. A lot of energy, like huge grunge, like energy flowing through that album. But the one that really takes the cake for me, and it's 30th anniversary, so I have to pay respect to it. Soundgarden, Super Unknown.
Oh, that's a sleeper right there.
Yeah, you play Black Hole Sun, play Spoon Man.
Those are definitely like sing along songs too. If you're like riding in singing along with like the homies or whatever, dude, like, yeah, Spoon Man, and you're like hitting each other, the bam, 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 bam.
So that's what I'm thinking, like in a hurricane. I'm like, all right, so in the sequence of the album, Black Hole Sun comes first. And then I'm thinking about it as I'm driving, I see the tornado and I play Black Hole Sun. And then if I'm getting closer and it's getting more chaotic, then Spoon Man comes in. And then I'm just going off. I'm just like, and I'm singing Spoon Man, and I'm just getting all that energy in. So Super Unknown for me.
That's a good one.
I like
Are we
Soundgarden.
making a songs to Storm Chase 2 playlist on Spotify or what?
Oh yeah,
That's got to be a thing with this episode.
We got to do it.
No,
Unfortunately, though, with the song I'm about to name, it's not going to be on Spotify because I know the artist isn't on Spotify. So, unfortunately, it's just one of those artists. So you guys are going like the route of like amp up music. I'm going a little different. I'm going like I want something to calm my nerves and just keep me a level head and everything. And obviously the song title kind of goes with it, and not to mention with Oklahoma and country, I'm going Garth Brooks, man. Thunder Rolls. That's what I'm going with.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Peter.
I can respect that.
And obviously Thunder Rolls is a metaphor, but that's kind of what the point of the tornadoes are too. So, so that's where I'm going with. I'm going with Thunder Rolls by Garth Brooks.
I almost took like a side one, and
that.
I almost actually picked Chapel Roan because I've been just like absolutely loving her lately. Like Hot to Go, I feel like would be fun to sing to as I'm going into a tornado. I'm not probably on my own on that one, but for something about it, like, dude, I'm in that crowd right there too. Like that's the duality of me. 1 minute I'm listening to something I'm getting my face punched to. The next minute I'm dancing with the arms, baby.
Yeah, no, like it was for me. I couldn't think of any other. I couldn't really think of any other genre really, and plus it's in the 90s too. I couldn't really think of any other one that would be any more perfect than like a grunge album. So it was either Alice in Chains or Soundgarden, and with the way Soundgarden did Super Unknown, I'm just like, yeah, that one is sick because it's so heavy, but it's so dark, and it's just so. The tunings of it is so weird, and this is definitely fitting for a movie like this, which is not for nothing. Who's going to do tornado watching? Like, there's not many people that are going to do tornado watching. For those who do, I respect you.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing that. At least I'm not doing it. All right. The other questions, obviously with the whole Aunt Meg scene and they're eating delicious steak and eggs.
God,
first off, I love steak and eggs, but I don't know if that's the food I would eat before like going to do some like physical work and in a storm. I need to be moving fast. So what are you guys eating before you're going into a storm? Because I'm keeping myself light. Like it's got to be something light.
I'm with you, man. I'm mowing a PB&J straight up. I'm going peanut butter jelly. Like it's an on the go food if you got to go fast. Something about like just a good peanut butter jelly sandwich. In my case, jam. I prefer jam, but just texture issues. But a good PB&J as you're like riding into this, especially if the right, I don't know, man. It reminds me of like sporting events in the halftime. You would just mow a quick Uncrustable or something. That's what I'm rolling into with.
I'm going a Chick-fil-A sandwich real quick. That's it. You know, just one Chick-fil-A sandwich because it's not like, you know, they're filling enough, but they're not super filling. So it's just like, just get me to that Chick-fil-A drive-through. I'm going with that. That's it.
I would. You guys got to get Cookout. I got to get you guys some Cookout sometime. So trust me, a Cookout cheeseburger, trust me, it would change your life.
Man, for me, you know what? I'm gonna stick with some good eggs, man. The eggs were good. Just the steak, the way that steak looked was way too big. I'm like, no, I can't.
There was way too much. Like I'm taking a nap after that meal, like mashed potatoes and steak, especially the amount of potatoes he puts on Melissa's plate. I'm like, oh God, dude, I'm instant napping. There's zero chance I'm chasing a tornado right now.
Zero chance. I'm getting the itis after that.
Oh yeah,
it's 100% day, and I'm passed out during the Lions game in the third quarter.
Did you see the gravy and potatoes? That's what's giving it to me right there. Like that was it. I was like, oh man, I'm falling right the fuck asleep. If I have that, and it looks delicious because I love gravy and potatoes. Like
it did, but I'm just not waking up until that tornado hits the house.
Once it hits.
Man,
the other thing,
some eggs and orange juice.
There you go. That's more like it though. That's a little lighter, keep you light on your feet. The other thing I was just thinking about too though is Aunt Meg makes the comment like, did you see any cows out front sort of thing. So where's she slaughtering these bad boys? Like that's what I just want to know. Like does she got like a Texas chainsaw situation?
Dude, it's Oklahoma.
Downstairs?
She's got the whole barn and everything. You know she
got the whole barn and all that stuff, man. Of course she's doing that. She has to.
And she probably is. Maybe we should make that. Just be like Aunt Meg's cows or something.
Where do you think the steak came from?
It's exactly where it came from. All right. Last question I have for our opening questions is this the best use of The Shining in another form of media? There's a couple of other entries that I have on here. Notably, we've got Room 237, which is basically a Shining documentary. You know, if you want to call it a documentary, I'd say it is, but it's like a more of a, you know, it's other people's interpretations of what the meaning of The Shining is. And then they have Ready Player One, which does a great job of having The Shining in that movie. So I don't know, but I like this one. It's kind of like there, and it's just like not hitting you over the head with it. But I do have some issues with it. Like first off, like they show the scene of them, you know, they open up with the scene of them like seeing the twins, which is like relatively early on, and then they jump ahead a lot to go to the red rum scene is the next thing that's on the screen. I'm like, that's like an hour right there. That's got to be like a solid hour.
Yeah.
If you know The Shining, that's like a solid hour.
Rest in peace, Shelley Duvall, real quick. Like, rest in peace, Shelley out there.
Thank you.
You know, she just
ago.
died. Yeah, she just passed away. But I mean, I don't have a problem with them jumping ahead because you got to think there's some exposition in between. They're sitting at the window counter. Joe and Bill are that we're talking where they're doing like some planning and things at the vehicle. So you're not watching the movie the whole time. So I'm fine with that because it's perfectly believable that time passes from when they get there to when the tornado hits.
No. Wow. Well, I love The Shining and I love the fact that they use it. I just think for me, based upon the movie, because Twister doesn't really delve into these crazy themes. This is just me because as much as I loved it, I'm a stickler just to analyze just how crazy it's gonna get. And while it did get crazy, you didn't really see anything as crazy as The Shining, but I guess it's almost like a foreboding, so to speak, in terms of just the disaster of what's to come. and especially for the F5, like it sets up. So, yeah, no, I think it's a good use of The Shining overall. I'm gonna be a little bit. I'm not gonna be as picky about it. I think it's good.
It's good. I'd say Ready Player One it's more integral to the story, so I think it's probably a better use of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it. I like the addition of it. That's fair. I'll let that slide as far as like my nitpick on the timing of it. But yeah, that's really it. All right. Long time coming. Let's dive into the production notes. I'm keeping it short this week though, because I knew we had 3 people on and we're gonna get into some good conversation.
We had a lot to say.
Yeah, we have a lot to say about it.
And we haven't even gotten to the categories yet. So, but anyways, the concept for Twister was developed by Michael Crichton and his wife, Anne-Marie Martin, who wrote the initial screenplay. So, but there is also an uncredited script doctor on this project. I want you guys to guess who it is. If you get stuck, very prolific writer and filmmaker, I will say that. And I'll give you a hint. Definitely more common with 90s television at the time, but had a foray into movies later on. So
that is
wow. 90s TV, cartoon or
no, live action and think
live action.
Think more teen, think more nerd culture stuff too.
That sounds like Josh Gidding or something like that. Oh fuck!
You got it. You're right there. Joss Whedon.
I knew. Josh Whedon. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I got
Joss
it.
Whedon,
I knew. I had such a feeling because, especially during the latter part of the '90s, like he was the one who was involved in the creation of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah,
exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's where I was going with is like Buffy, and obviously, then he went on to do.
He's
Avengers
a piece of shit, but.
Yeah, whatever. He is.
He is a piece of shit, but still.
But yeah, he did create Buffy and stuff like that, so we can pay homage to that.
Yeah,
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah, I found that very interesting that he was an uncredited script doctor on the project. But Steven Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment, along with Warner Brothers and Universal, backed the project. Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton were cast for the leads, playing the meteorologist storm chasers. Hunt's role was challenging due to some like onset injuries and some physical demands of the film. So you can see that too. Like there's a lot of physical demands for her character.
Yeah, there's
when
a lot
they were
of
filming. One of the things is they went temporarily blind because while they're in the vehicles for long periods of time, right, to get the lighting and stuff right, they had like these bright overhead lights that were shining into the vehicles while they were filming, and so they went temporarily blind from the lighting effects that they had to use to get some of the storm effects.
Right. That's a good point. I didn't realize that. Shit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, damn. Principal photography on the film started on May 1st, 1995, primarily in Oklahoma and Iowa. The filmmakers encountered various weather-related challenges. De Bont, who is the director, insisted on filming real storms when possible, too, which was really cool. Which added to the film's authenticity. You could tell like some of the stuff is like really like films. Yeah, it's really not really tornadoes, but like really like some big storms and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Part of the issue with production though was that obviously with storms you're wanting to film in darkness more so. Is that during this was the sunniest, most blue sky tornado season in Oklahoma history. So they had to use obviously special effects, and that's where the visual effects came in. Groundbreaking visual effects from ILM. So
do you guys know who they are?
Oh, of course, dude. Industrial Light and Magic.
Do you know where they
Star
came
Wars.
from? How they got? Yeah, I was going to say. Do you guys know how they got their start? Yeah, Star Wars.
Yeah, I know. Ooh. Come on, man. Don't test my Star Wars knowledge.
I was there when it was written.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was ILM that worked on the movie, and yeah, they a lot of the effects, with the tornadoes and the CGI, it looks pretty cool for the time. The only one that really takes me out of it is the one at the beginning where they show the globe, and I'm like, oh my God, this looks so terrible. And then sure enough, they zoomed out and it was like a computer model. I'm like, oh, thank God.
Well, like it's so
like they weren't pursuing that to be real. Because if that looked real, I was like, that is awful. But
Yeah.
Nah, that would have been awful, but good thing once again they kind of they corrected that.
yeah. But the sound design, I think, from ILM, like it was awesome. That really like brought it to another level. I think is the filming or the sounding of the wind and like the things blowing around, that like that's where it enhances it, and especially enhances it when you go to see it in theaters too, which is why I want to see the sequel in theaters, because I'm sure that with
Same.
how effects are done now too, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
So
I only have one
28
complaint,
years later,
obviously, is when again, I have to mention it earlier with the 2 water spout tornadoes, it makes them sound like you're running something through a table saw. Like that's not how those tornadoes sound. That's my only complaint about the sound thing. And it's so minute. You get that like that screeching sound while they're getting stuck there. But that's my only complaint. And if that's like one of the only complaints I have, then I think you're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah. No, listen, that it overall, the sound effects, I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but it was good. I thought it was pretty good. I thought they did very well with the sounding. I thought they did very well with it. But
yeah,
again, right, if you're familiar with tornadoes, if you're familiar with them and you know how they sound, then yeah, like it may not be something which you're going to be like, not quite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Like if you're that familiar with tornadoes, I'm sure, because sometimes tornadoes sound like almost like I've heard them like a train,
Yep.
is something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that
So,
too.
the film underwent a rushed post-production schedule to meet its release date, and composer Mark Mancina created the score, adding to the film's intense and thrilling atmosphere. It's cool because the score definitely adds some like guitar stuff that definitely makes it feel a lot 90s. But then like there's some scenes where they're like getting ready to like go chase the tornado at first, and it kind of reminded me of Jaws in a way, because there's this like whimsical adventure feel to the score, and so that's like them going after the shark, and obviously you can go back to Jaws in this in the themes of man versus nature sort of thing. So yeah, I found that to be like definitely an influence on that. But I overall like the score. I think, and it's definitely like it's 90s, but it's not like overwhelmingly 90s.
Right.
Yeah.
Where it's like it's really hitting me over the head with it. The added guitar definitely is like gives it that feel, but it's not overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
So that's it. We're keeping it short, like I said, with the production this week. Box office though, 240 million in the domestic box office.
Yeah,
Where does that place it in 1996 for the box office for the year, guys?
8. I don't know.
8?
Wasn't for a time? Wasn't at the time? Was it like didn't like get to number 1 at that time?
Close. Calvin, but if we're going Prices Right rules, you lost.
Yeah.
But no, it was number 2 for the whole year. The only one that was ahead of it was another disaster film, Independence Day.
Yeah, yep. That's why I was like, I don't know. Independence Day came out. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting year for that. But yeah, if we're adjusting that for inflation, that's going to be almost 500 million in today's dollars.
Yeah.
And if we're looking back on 2023, it's almost in the same spot. It's going to be it would be like the number 3 spot in 2023, just below Super Mario Brothers, but just ahead of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which seems about right. It
does.
Yeah, it does. We talk about like the critical reception and awards, generally favorable, 68 on Metacritic. I think a lot of like critics liked it more for the visual effects and the sound, and some of the action set pieces are really good. So generally favorable on Metacritic, 63% on Rotten Tomatoes, 58% audience score. So, pretty aligned all around there. For Academy Awards, though, it was nominated for Best Visual Effects and Best Sound. Yeah. So it did receive some Academy Award nominations there. It didn't win, but it did receive some noms.
I find it very hard. I find it that usually a lot of disaster films, they don't get even disaster or sci-fi films, they don't really get these like Academy Award type of nods. They usually don't. They have to really, really be standout. Like Terminator 2, for example. Terminator 2 got so many, as did Titanic. Titanic.
I was going to say Titanic. You're missing the big one there. That is the disaster film.
That is the disaster film, and forget about it. It had that movie got accumulated so many nominations and got so many awards from it, and so it's a milestone whenever you see Twister. When you see Twister get those acclamations and get that's a big deal.
Yeah. Films like that don't get accolades as much, especially nowadays they would, but a lot of the times with the technical stuff, they'll give it to some of the bigger box office ones because they put so much time and resources into it. So, typically it does look a little bit better and, visual effects and everything like that. So, all right, categories. Best scene. I got 4 really. And, tell me if you guys got any more, but I love the character intros in the beginning. I love that scene where it's like they, Bill and Melissa arrive on scene and you get to meet everybody. I like that. It's like it's a good like getting to know everybody scene, like who is everybody, what's everybody's job there. You get a sense for like this crew just being together for a long time, and they allude to Bill's past, the extreme too. So there's something a little bit more with him. But I love that scene. All right, next one I got is the cow tornado. Like I have a lot of fun. Yeah,
poor cow.
That one's just fun. That's just like a fun scene before they go into the other tornado. But I like that one. And then I like the food scene at Aunt Meg's. It's like a nice little breather between storms.
Yeah, it's a good break because you're like going at a breakneck pace almost to this point, and then it gives you time to just kind of like breathe for a moment and kind of spend time with these characters where they're not just like under duress.
But it's so interesting because even when they're just chilling, hanging out, they're still talking about tornadoes. They're still talking about all of that. But at the same time, you feel that family camaraderie that they have there.
Yeah. There's like a love and a passion. It's like, things that we talk about. If you're a sports player, you're mostly still talking about that kind of stuff or whatnot. So like it makes perfect sense, and still like a big bonding time. And you get kind of a glimpse into their past. Like there's a past with this house, with this area and things of that nature. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you get to know Aunt Meg a little bit and like what her role is in all of this. You get the sense that like, she's Joe's closest family. So
but
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, but I was about to say, but then at the same time, one of the things that you also feel how Melissa is so like out of the loop. It's like she's like that piece. She's that piece that's there, and she's us. Obviously, she's a representation of us. She's a conduit for us. But just her character in that particular moment, you see how out of place she is, and just how she's so divergent from everybody there, and everybody's trying to kind of accommodate her, especially Bill, but at the same time it's just like they get caught up in their own world of tornadoes and memories, and she's just here and she's just like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. And even the character moment where she's like looking at the food being like, you expect me to eat this? I'm like, yeah, I fucking would.
Actually,
I fucking would.
It's a character moment for her because I'm like, I was like thinking in my head, I'm like, is she like a vegetarian or something like that? I'm like, what's going on here? It was interesting. I'm like, I thought she was going to say something, but then not. Like, I just, they even built upon her character like that too. So, you do get a sense for that. And obviously, like, there's some exposition too on like the Vegeta scale. You get some backstory on Bill, that story about him being naked and throwing the Jack Daniels at the tornado is actually pretty hilarious.
That is actually pretty hilarious.
It's pretty funny. All right. And then for the last scene that I call it the Shining Tornado, obviously. So I feel like those are the best 4 scenes. You guys have any others?
I do actually. I like the whole ridiculousness of the jumping tornado, because it looks as though they're like so close to this tornado the whole time. And Bill's obviously climbing out the back, and like it's taking forever to get Dorothy going. It's like, I almost feel like they could have had it already like turned on and everything. That way you're running there. And it's like it's one of the like the most emotional, deep parts of the movies too. Like this whole movie's ridiculous. The scene kind of captures the ridiculousness of it because he's getting pelted with hail and branches. There's a telephone pole at one point that drops on top of the truck and it's unfazed. At one point you see something smash into the glass of the window, but then in another scene, like the windshield's not cracked at all. This truck is taking a beating. And then you get like this really tender moment after Dorothy falls over. That's like, just, you can't bring your dad back, Joe. And then you see like poor Melissa, like trying not to cry as she hears this. And it's just
all my spoons, man.
Yeah. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just kind of like converges this like really emotionalness. There's deepness to it within the scene. It's not just all pure ridiculousness.
It is. Yeah. It's a good scene. It is.
Oh my God, man. You guys pretty much took all my scenes. I had like 3 scenes. I had first the opening credit, the one with the tornado itself that swooped and took her father. That's one, because that really just sets everything into motion, obviously. 2, the introduction of everybody. 4, 2, the introduction of everybody. Good segue and a good way to just see where Bill and Joe's life, to see where their lives are at this particular point, and you get accustomed to everybody. You meet everybody, of course. 3, the dinner scene, because like I explained, you get the family feel, but then also you looking at the character of Melissa, you also feel how she's out of place in this lifestyle. That's one, and then obviously the one with Dorothy. That one was really deep. That one was probably, I would say that one was probably the one that stuck out to me the most, because you saw it was very tender, it was very deep, but then you saw basically he said that you can't bring your dad back, and then you saw obviously, like Matt said, like she's ready to cry about it. But then also another thing that you see is that she kind of realizes at this particular point, because of her obsession with tornadoes and things like that, she let what she had with Bill go and slip away, because you get the illusion that she was probably more so responsible for their divorce, so to speak, because she was probably devoted more to that job because of her trauma. And then she really loved him. You saw that she loved him, because you could even see throughout the movie, which is one great thing. You could see throughout the movie, from the glances to like things that she would bring up, she really loved him. But she just, she had that obsession with tornadoes. But you could tell, like, she really loved him. She was looking at him, and she was just like, I can't. Like, she just couldn't let go. But then in that moment, she was just like, shit, like, I'm crying. I can't bring my dad back, but then I lost someone who's so important to me because of my lack of balance. So love those scenes. Yeah,
I do too. It's a good scene. So is that what you guys are going for as far as your best scene? My vote is for Shining Tornado.
Yeah, the last one. The last one's my favorite scene.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the whole emotional jumping tornado sequence.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I can't disagree with that one. All right. What age the best? I think number 1 for me, the cast. The cast has got to be what age the best for me. Like it's unbelievable. The cast, you got obviously Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt, but then just the supporting cast of having Carrie Elways, who's, let's just say this. I don't think Carrie Elways is that great in this film. His accent's kind of weird.
Doesn't have much to do. I mean, we didn't need a villain in this film. Like, you don't really need a bad guy in this film. You're chasing tornadodos. Like, it was kind of like, they needed some sort of conflict, I guess, and somebody to kind of like be more arrogant, but they didn't really need him.
He's heightened the stakes a little bit,
He's an antagonist.
Yeah.
He's an antagonist more so than saying he's a bad guy, because you know how the role of an antagonist is not always he's good or bad, but he's someone who conflicts with the overall movement of the story, which is led by the protagonist. So it's not a bad guy, but the antagonist, yeah, he is definitely.
Yeah, like and again, it just didn't felt necessary, but I get why they kind of had him, because you kind of got like the duality of storm chasing. I guess he thought he had all the caravan of black vans rolling at all times. He thought he had the better equipment. He stole, Bill's idea and things like that. So I mean, I get it, but yeah, he didn't really do much in this movie, and that's okay. He didn't need to. I thought the cast was awesome. I mean, for sure. Like,
for sure.
I thought the cast absolutely kind of aged the best. They even today, you feel like this camaraderie about them. They're so fun. There's not a weak point. Even the one dude who I forget his name, he was like hiding in the RV when Joe pulled him out to get him to safety. Like, he doesn't really have anything or hardly any lines, or the guy with the glasses who gets cut on the head, like.
Oh yeah, the preacher guy.
You still feel like the family about them all. And so I'm going to say the cast, to me, definitely the best.
Yeah, and then obviously we didn't even talk about Philip Seymour Hoffman and Alan Ruck.
I could talk about Philip Seymour Hoffman all day long in this movie.
Oh boy,
he's so good. But yeah, I mean, between the cast and the sound design, I think those are probably what aged the best. But I don't know. Did you guys have anything else that aged the best?
No, the cast definitely was the one that stuck out to me the most. The cast and how you saw, once again, the camaraderie, the family aspect of it, and it felt so genuine. That was great. So I feel like that age.
I didn't mean. I'm sorry. I spoke. My bad. Keep going.
No, it's okay. No,
like my brain. I was thinking in my head. I said "or" in my head, but apparently I said my bad.
No, but that, and then also you know what? The effects also. Even today, they were actually not bad at all, even for today's standards.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell there were a couple of, interesting scenes. We'll just leave it at that for the glow, for example. But in terms of just the overall effects, no, the effects actually, that was actually really good. I think that really aged the best. I think from the perspective, when you look at it in 1996, for what aged the best, you could still look at it and say, oh, wow, that's pretty cool right there.
I would also say like the passion that storm makers almost have to make things safer and better, to always warn people and, prevent loss of life. I would say that's something that also, like, meteorology in general has actually aged, pretty well, considering the things that they had in this movie and to where we're at now with the ability to read storms and kind of things like that. Obviously there's no Dorothy, but like, I would actually say like the meteorology aspect of things have aged pretty well, and the passion that they have.
I would say
it aged. I think it aged even better. I think it aged not just like well, but it got even better as it went along, really.
Yeah.
I think it aged well, but I also think that people's skepticism of science has made it not age as well too now, unfortunately. Which is just that's just like a reflection on our society today, though. So all right, not to go down that road, but basically that's where I think it like didn't age well. I totally skipped over most quotable line, but this isn't like the most quotable line movie, I'd say. I think for me, there's a couple ones. I like the Dusty one where he's saying to Melissa, the suck zone, which is pretty funny. He's like, the suck zone. He's like, it's basically when the twister sucks you up. It's not the technical term, obviously. So I'm throwing like a little bit more of a California accent on it too. So,
yeah, I would really only have like cow. That's probably like the most quotable line to me.
The cow exchange, yeah.
It's just that to this point today, I still quote that one.
And then there's the other one with Bill where he's like, Joe, the things go wrong, you can't explain it, you can't predict it, like that whole exchange. I like that one too. And that's really it. This isn't like a quotable line movie though, like
it's really not.
It's not what it's for. All right, what aged the worst? Maybe disaster movies in general have aged the worst because they seem like a time capsule at this point. We don't have as many of them as we used to. I mean, we still do.
I don't think it's not
the same.
It's like comedies, right?
Same, yeah.
We don't get them like we used to.
Yeah, no. I think the overall, because I think, and this is where the 90s, this is where it did. I don't want to say fail, but this is where that part of the 90s is done. No revival of that. is that the disaster genre, it was so used in the 90s. And then obviously you had Titanic which was like the peak of it in terms of just the influence of it and just the cultural impact of it, that I think people just really were not so invested in it once the turn of the century came in and started coming in fewer and fewer and far in between. So the genre itself aged the worst. And it's not because it's bad, but just, I guess, the public perception of it, they just moved on from it.
Well, it's also like we did have a couple disaster films post 9/11.
2012.
Yeah, the 2012 San
that
Andreas,
other one.
The Day After Tomorrow, which is like another.
Day After Tomorrow. Yeah.
You had all these the Roland Emmerich ones, which is Roland Emmerich's the Independence Day guy as well. So
yes.
So like you had some of those, but they're not as many, and they're not as few and far between, and they're not as memorable.
Our entire life is one big disaster at this point. Real life,
exactly.
Disaster.
And I think they're not as culturally impactful.
No,
they're not. That's the thing. The cultural impact is faded. Like I think that faded a while ago, because The Day After Tomorrow, great. While it was a very interesting disaster film, if it was done in the 90s, the perception of it and how it would have been viewed, it would have been different. It probably would have been different. Yeah. It probably would have been a movie which people would have looked at with the much more, I guess, like it would have driven the masses even more so to look at the movie, to watch the movie. And obviously the impact of it probably would have stood out a little bit more. Yeah. But unfortunately, because again, the cultural high point that faded after 2000, after 9/11, like you said, after 9/11, that it kind of went away, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a common theme when we revisit some of the movies of our past of like what happened, because we even just talked about it with True Lies, how like they couldn't do a sequel basically because of 9/11. So and even some other ones.
Yeah, that affected cinema in a lot of ways. Wow.
Yeah.
About even TV shows.
World and cultural events can have a big impact across many different facets of our life. So, I'd say like, disaster movies have kind of aged poorly just in the fact that we just don't have them anymore and they don't have as much of an impact. So that's my vote for what aged the worst. But I don't know if you guys had anything else.
Not really.
Just that one in particular.
All right. If you had a Rick and Morty interdimensional cable box, what version of this movie would you like to see? All right. So I did hear that Tom Hanks was considered for the role of Bill at that point. Would I have liked to see Tom Hanks in this? Yes, I would have. And the beauty of Tom Hanks, again, because I love Bill Paxton in this, I actually don't, wouldn't change that. But would I like to see Tom Hanks? The beauty of Tom Hanks, though, is that he's the everyman. Like he's that guy. Like he's not like Glenn Powell where he's fucking beautiful and like like you can't see him as a storm chaser. Like he's Tom Hanks. He looks like a regular dude for the most part.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah. So
I think Bill Paxton.
I don't know. I don't really have anything other than I just want to see Melissa and Dusty get together. I'm shipping them hardcore, man.
Yeah, no, that's one thing I would love to ship. I just want them all to be happy. But I think Bill Paxton is a good everyman. I think he's pretty good, and he was pretty good in those type of roles because interestingly, weirdly enough, he always played these roles of very interesting characters which are seeking something. They're always seeking something, whether it may be this one with Twister or in the Titanic, he's seeking the heart of the ocean, or when you see him in U-571, that one is more practical, but he was actually seeking like a German U-boat destroyer, and he was seeking it out to get the Enigma. So he has this everyman quality, but there's a trait of trying to just seek something, like from what I've seen of him anyway. So I think he's a good everyman, but Rick and Morty.
In True Lies, he's trying to seek
Yes.
seek
Jesus Christ.
Jamie Lee Curtis's character's body. So, oh god. But you were saying, Calvin, Rick and Morty, as you like to say.
I can't help my accent. What am I gonna do? But okay, in a Rick and Morty box, let's see. Helen Hunt. I love her. I wouldn't change her. I love her. I think she was great. She's beautiful. Who would I put instead of her? You know who I was thinking about? I would kind of put, I don't know why this came up for me, but I would put Alicia Silverstone. Maybe because it's a 90s thing, but
too young.
I would put, too young at the time.
Way too young, yeah.
Yeah, too young at the time. But if she was like older at the time, or Uma Thurman.
I guess Uma Thurman, but even she still feels a little too young, I think. But maybe I think she's more believable, yeah.
Yeah, she was a good age at the time. Like she was probably in her mid-late 20s at the time. Remember Batman and Robin that came out a year later? Oh yeah,
dude.
Now that's a disaster film.
Hey, I will take no slander on this podcast. Thank you. I will take none of that.
We'll get to that one, but no, she would have been good. As for Melissa, wow. You know what? I think that character is so perfect for her role. I don't think I would change it at all because even she's perfect.
Yeah.
It's a perfect look. Yeah, no. Oh, wait. I have one.
Let's go.
Julie Marie Dreyfus.
Julie Louis-Dreyfus?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's how I felt.
Actually, I 100% agree. That's a great call out because A, she's funnier. Also, both of them on Seinfeld too, obviously. They both have that episode. You can't spare one square. Yeah, that's the episode. But yeah, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, first off, she's funnier too. Second off, I don't know if she could do the Southern accent though. So I understand where you're looking to cast somebody who does the Southern accent like Jamie Gertz really well. So, but Julie Louis-Dreyfus would have been hilarious. So, and you know what, honestly, like maybe she could do it without a Southern accent because it would have been like, hey, different parts of your life. And this, you don't even need a Southern accent. This, cosmopolitan woman who's pretty funny and, would do this. I think maybe it could have been too funny if she was it. So that's the only thing I'm thinking. But yeah, I like that. All right. Any other thoughts on the interdimensional cable box for this version?
No.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's do standout performance. I'm actually
there's one
gonna skip ahead actually too. We're not doing pound for pound this week because nobody's really
get ready to go here soon too.
Nobody's really in the movie like for a little bit of time that throws a ton of heat. So it's people who are in this movie are in this movie. I got two, and it's Bill Paxton, Philip Seymour Hoffman for me.
It's Philip Seymour Hoffman. I'm taking Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's Dusty, hands down, man. He makes this movie so much fun.
Yeah.
No, pound for pound. Wow. I mean,
this is a standout performance. No pound for pound this week.
No pound for pound standout performance. Yeah, Philip. Yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yeah, he definitely because anytime he was on, it was you paid attention big time. And
he eats up the scene.
He does.
Yeah, no, he definitely eats up the scene. And also, I would say three. I would say Philip Seymour Hoffman. Bill Paxton's role was pretty good. He had a good performance, especially when he had that emotional delivery to Joe. That was really good. So that was one. And then also Melissa's actress actually. Also her.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think she.
Okay.
Jamie Gertz.
I think, Jamie Gertz. I think she conveyed the role of the. I think she was a great conduit, and I think she was a great character in regards to just being that person who, at first, she felt confident about. Okay, like he drove me straight over here, so that way we can just get the divorce papers and go and just get married. But then as time went along, you saw her concerns and you saw how she was just like, I don't know if you're ever going to leave that life. Like, she had a great performance, honestly.
Yeah. She was pretty good in the time that she was in it, in the perfect amount of time. And she's in it too much to obviously be pound for pound, but I could see nominating her for standout performance. But yeah, I think PSH is the way to go for as far as standout performance go.
Yep. He's number
Hands
one.
down.
Hands down. All right. Who gets an Oscar? I mean, it was nominated for 2 for visual effects and sound design. I'm going to give it to the sound design more than the visual effects.
I'll go visual effects because you said sound design that way.
Yeah, I'm on the visual.
Okay. All right. We'll keep it to the technical stuff. Music moment. There's not many in this, but to me, there's only one. It's that one scene where they're first going into that first tornado where, they get Joe and Bill get trapped on the bridge with Joe's truck.
Like Google Dolls.
They're going into it. No, I don't think it's Goo Goo Dolls. There's a bunch of bands playing. Each person's like got their own thing going on. Like
guys
got his own thing.
True.
It's like a good mashup of music.
Yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman's playing it, but then you got the other couple there that are playing. They're singing Oklahoma, which I love. I'm like, all right, that's the good one. They're actually singing Oklahoma from the play. So that's where I say is the best music moment. It's fun,
I was actually going to say that because it's a multiple mashup and you get everybody's kind of personality from the get-go.
Yeah.
Based off of the musical moments there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely thinking about when the Google Dolls, like they had like when they were, I think it was a scene when they were actually like driving towards the tornado, I believe. Like there was like a Google Dolls song that was playing and I was just like, for some weird reason, because I know that song, but for some weird reason, like it kind of fit, especially for the era that it was in and like what was going on. Because the Google Dolls, whenever you hear the Google Dolls, there's a lot of personal conversations or personal things that they tend to write about. So I'm like, and this was going on while they were obviously talking, while Bill and Joe, they were talking and stuff like that. So for the Google Dolls to play right after they like get out the car and stuff like that, like that was a good moment because the Google Dolls, you always associate the Google Dolls with something, either an intimate memory or like a personal intimate relationship type of band. And they're a great band. And maybe because I'm from New York State, maybe I'm a little biased on that, which I admit.
I didn't know Goo Goo Dolls was New York, but
they're from Buffalo. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, upstate there. But yeah, Long Way Down. That's the song that's playing for them.
Yep.
All right. Last couple ones here.
I got my double feature ready to go. You guys aren't ready for what I'm about to say.
All right. Mine's pretty easy. It's Independence Day. Like we're going to stick it to 1996 and keep it with the disaster film and just stay directly in that time period, which was one of the most sacred time periods in my entire life. I entered my double digits, 10 years old. And man, I remember seeing Independence Day in theaters. I didn't see Twister in theaters, but both movies I always held in my heart. So
gotta hear yours.
Go, Maddie.
This is my Iguodala moment. All right.
All right. Okay.
Sharknado.
Oh, there we go. You did it.
I'm going Sharknado, baby.
Sharknado.
From one serious Twister movie to another most unserious moment in cinematic history where we get sharks in a tornado and just pure ridiculousness. Give me that as my double feature.
Dude, that's a great double feature.
That is a great double feature. You know what, man, for me, honestly, because of Bill Paxton, and I have to pay respect to him, God rest his soul, I have to go Titanic afterwards.
Oh, there you go. That's a great
call,
one.
Man. That's a good call. You guys went more serious, though.
Yeah, no, I have to because it still fits. It's weird because it's almost as if like the Twister character he played, the character Bill with, well, his name is Bill, so Bill. So the character Bill played in Twister and then Titanic, I almost feel as though they're very similar people. It's just on different fronts.
Oh yeah.
Totally. You could merge those two worlds somehow. I don't know. Maybe Bill has to go and maybe he just gets into he's doing on some sort of like sea journey, being a meteorologist. He gets this grant and he's got to go on some sea journey. He gets really into the Titanic and does some research on that. There you go.
Yeah. There you go.
He becomes money obsessed. He becomes the enemy that he hates with Jonas, and becomes money obsessed and obsessed with finding this diamond now too. So there you go.
No, that's total
heel
totally
turn from him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it would be totally perfect, especially like he could do typhoons.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So instead of just doing land tornadoes, he could do water tornadoes, and then he'll flip it there, and then he becomes Brock Lovett. I don't know how, but he just changes his name to become Brock Lovett. He realizes, you know what? I need more than this. And he just goes on. He tries to find the heart of the ocean. Beforehand, he was known for pillaging Spanish gold. Now, he's a heart of the ocean guy. I can see it.
All right. Who wins the day?
Meteorologists, because this movie inspired so many of us. We were just talking about at the beginning of the episode. We wanted to get into meteorology, right? We took an interest in it. And I would like to say that a lot of people were also inspired. And I think it put like a shining light on meteorology there back in this time. And maybe it inspired some people that really came on to be meteorologists. And maybe they went on to do really good things in the field of meteorology. I don't know. I'm not well versed, but I'm going to go ahead and say like meteorology in general, I think wins the day from this.
I think so too. I think meteorology, and I think the 90s win the day in this.
Yeah,
just the 90s in general.
Audience, us.
Yeah. I think meteorology wins, and also the 90s it wins because even still today it still stands up. It still stands up, and it's still a movie. I was in Staten Island yesterday. And I was watching the movie again yesterday, and like funny enough, because we went over to my girlfriend's like best friend's house. We went over there, and then I was like, I just want to watch Twister one more time. And then it's like, are you kidding? Get the fuck out of here. That's my favorite movie. And I was just like, really? He's like, yeah, I was watching it before, but we'll watch it again. And I was just like, wow, that's how much that movie really stuck out with people.
Awesome. All right. Time for the moment of truth. Letterboxd score. Out of 5 stars, what are we giving this movie? Matt, you want to lead us off?
I'm going to go with strong 4.5 because there were a couple like Carrie's character. I'm like, okay, don't really need that. A couple like the CGI moments, like, man, it didn't really live. But for overall, man, it's a really fun movie. Clearly, it holds up to us today. Clearly, it's one that a lot of people love. The acting was really solid. There's a lot of great character performance. It's got some emotional beats to it. It's got a lot of like great disaster aspects to it. So honestly, man, 4.5 for me easily.
Yeah.
Calvin, what do you got?
I would say 4. Great movie. Some things you can look at and just say, like maybe that could be due to time, maybe due to the fact that even still, regardless of how well it aged, there's still certain things you look at years later and you're just like, from a modern day perspective. But in terms of an overall movie, great movie. 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm honestly like, I love a lot of this movie. I like the sound design. I like the casting a lot. I like the runtime too. It's an hour and 53 minutes, but honestly, it feels faster than that. It's a breakneck pace. It's got some great pacing. I think there are some stuff like with the CGI that don't age that well. But honestly, I don't hold much against it. So for me, it's a 4. And I think with that, it's going to bring it to
4.12. 4.2, I guess, if you want to say 4.2, rounding up 4.2.
Yeah, it'd be 4.2. So that's a little on the lower side. So we'll round to call it 4.
We'll call it 4. Yeah, I think 4 is a really reasonable number. 4, honestly, like for this movie and the things that, and it's not like a big, obviously, mighty blockbuster or anything like that. I think a 4 is more than reasonable for what this film is.
It is. It kind of is a mighty blockbuster, though. When you look at
you're
the
right.
number.
You're right. I guess, but like in terms of like the '90s and how it holds up today, and like what people like standards are and things like that, I without a doubt, I would say that fair score right there.
Yeah, no, four is a very fair score. 4 is a very fair score. I mean, I think just because the only reason why I give it a 4 again, everything from the sequencing to the pacing, the story, absolutely great. Actually, better than films today in terms of pacing and everything. It's just certain things you notice with today in terms of just one or two little things, and obviously with the CGI, some things they have aged. And then again, I feel like, to your point, Charlie, that you brought up, that in terms of debris, in terms of like things not hitting people, like people would critique that today and be like, no, like we want to make it as realistic as possible.
Yeah. So I'm happy with the 4 stars. But that's it. That concludes our Twister episode here on the Real Buffs. So all the I'm going to call out the obvious here, by the way. At the beginning in last week's episode, or True Lies, I mentioned that we were going to do Forrest Gump. However, Matt is going away and mentioned that he wanted to do Twister before then. So we had to do a pivot. So now next week will be Forrest Gump, or next episode will be Forrest Gump. So just wanted to give that little caveat. But yeah, so you're going to get to enjoy the Forrest Gump trailer twice now. So enjoy that. But on behalf of the Real Buffs, I'm your host, Charlie.
I'm Matt.
And I'm the one, Calvin.
All right. And we will see you guys soon. Stay safe out there. Hunker down when those twisters come.